Dear students, today let us discuss On His Blindness by John Milton. This is the first poem from your syllabus. Before we actually try to understand the poem itself, let us have a brief introduction about the writer, the poet, John Milton. John Milton was born on 9th December 1608 and passed away on 8th November 1674. He was an English poet. He was a polemicist. Now, whom do you call as a polemist? Polemist is a writer who argues in opposition of others. This is especially found in theology. He was a man of letters and a civil servant for the Commonwealth of England under Oliver Cromwell. Students, I must say this to you all, that when you try to check about the information of John Milton, Wikipedia calls him a poet. On Google search, if you go and if you check Wikipedia, it says he's a poet, an intellectual, and a civil servant. So here the emphasis is on his intellectual abilities. Milton was a highly intelligent person, and of course he was born in 1608. That is at the time of Shakespeare. Of course, Shakespeare passed away in 1616, and Milton was pretty young. But whatever said, he was a man who had so much of potential in him. He was a man who was also a pamphleteer. Okay, now he used to pamphleteer is the one who writes pamphlets on political and controversial issues. And not only that, he was a tremendous and a voracious reader. And if you know, if you know how much of language, how many languages that he knew, you'll be truly baffled. His works were in English, Latin, Greek, Hebrew, French, Spanish, Italian, Old English, Dutch, Syriac. All these tongues he was well versed in, and he has actually contributed a lot to English language also, because he had the grip on so many other languages. He has introduced many new words to English, just like Shakespeare. Of course, not to his extent though, but Milton also has contributed many new expressions to English language. Okay, but it is said that Milton's poetry was slow to see the light of day, at least under his name. In fact, his first published poem was On Shakespeare in 1630. Okay, students, his first published work, and it was actually anonymously added in Shakespeare's second folio in 1632. In fact, okay, he came into light a little late. Okay, though he was such an wonderful and a very powerful writer he was, his poetic work came to light very late. And he is best known for his epic Paradise Lost, which came out in 1667. In fact, this is almost put on par with the other three great epics of the Western world. Whole of Europe, in fact, celebrates his Paradise Lost to such an extent, like Iliad's Iliad and Odyssey and Ronaldo and such great epics. Okay, it is put on par with those things. And especially all his poems, they are very personal in nature, self-reflective. And when somebody asked him why he wrote Paradise Lost, it was the main intention there of all his poetry is to justify God's way to men. Okay, he justifies why God does those things to men. That is the very intention of his poetry. That is what he says. And coming to this particular discussion, which is his poem On His Blindness, it is written in a Petrarchan sonnet form, students. Okay, we already know what is a sonnet. Sonnet is a poem of 14 lines, and I am sure that you're all well versed with Shakespearean sonnet. It was a prescribed sonnet for you in your previous semester. But now Petrarchan sonnet, it's a little different from Shakespearean sonnet. Technically, it is divided into two parts: octave and sestet. Octave is the where the problem or the idea is presented from in the first 8 lines, and sestet resolves it the last 6 lines. Okay, this is named after the Italian poet Petrarch, who initiated this sort of writing. And even when it comes to sonnet writing, Milton holds a very special place. He has written almost 19 sonnets in English. Okay, and some of which are very which are personal, and few others are political in their themes. But he is the first writer in English who exploited themes other than love in the sonnet form. Much before him, even we know that Shakespeare has written sonnets, but his sonnets were again very highly personal, but they were all about love for that dark lady, or his friendship with that patron of his. Okay, so this credit of trying other themes other than love in a sonnet form is attributed to John Milton. Okay, so this is so much for the introduction of this man. Anything said is much less, because we can discuss a lot about this personality, John Milton. Okay, so now with this introduction, let us move to the poem itself, on his blindness. Okay, I'll just give the reading of this poem once for you all. Please listen to this, and students, please remember, anything to sink in, it requires some time and it requires some repetition. So I would really insist that you all read the poem repetitively, so that you will get the idea of what the poem is all about. Okay, so here I'll read it out once for you all, and please you also read it. A self-reading is the best way of reading. So please do this after this session. Okay, I'll read the lines. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker, and present my true account, lest he returning chide, doth God exact day labour light denied? I fondly ask, but patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post over land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. Okay? This is the poem for you. One more reading of it. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker, and present my true account, lest he returning chide, doth God exact day labour light denied? I fondly ask, but patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post over land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. Okay, students? So now, before analyzing each and every line, I just want to make you understand the backdrop of this poem a little bit, and trying to analyze what exactly the poet is trying to say through these lines. Okay, a little bit of beforehand discussion, after which we can go line by line. Okay, see, Milton, among all his other qualities, he was a highly religious man. Okay, students, he was a religious man, and here in this particular poem, What is he actually presenting? It is a religious poet who is presenting the imaginative vision of a man's relationship with God and his faith in him. Okay, please remember, I'm sure that most of you in your own experience must have had some kind of a conversation with God, isn't it? We have all had troubles in life, we have all had sadness in life, sorrows in life, disasters in life. So at those point of times, even we have questioned God. Yes, isn't it? There are moments in our life where we, have a conversation with God. So here also we can say this is a religious poet who is presenting the imaginative vision of a man's relationship with God and his faith in him. Okay? But having said that, every religious man is of course a man, even he is a human being. A religious man is not without his moments of doubts and conflicts, isn't it? Even he'll have doubts, just like we have doubts. Whenever we are deprived of some joy in life, we question, why did God do this to me, isn't it? Somewhere even our belief wavers, even we doubt about God's existence. It's almost like that. Even a religious man, a highly religious man like Milton, also has moments of doubts and conflict. Okay, but unlike the ordinary men, unlike not so religious men, what is special about religious men, and especially like a person like John Milton, is that they overcome those doubts and conflicts, okay, and with that mental and emotional faith that they have in the existence of God. Okay, it's such a kind of solace. Though we have doubts, still we can come back strong with our belief, because somewhere deep inside, a religious man definitely has a strong faith. So he has a very strong mental and emotional faith in God. So he overcomes that doubts and conflicts in his mind. Okay. This is what we are exactly trying to see in this particular poem. Hope students, I have given you some hint in what you can expect in this particular poem. And now let me just try to take your attention to the title, On His Blindness. See, as the very title is suggestive, it is about his blindness. Here his blindness could be about, God turning blind towards Milton, or it is about the physical blindness of Milton that he is speaking about, his own blindness. Okay, students, this is something that you all need to know, that a very sad thing that happened in Milton's life was around 43 or 44 years of age, Milton became completely blind. He lost his eyesight. Okay. So, like many of them say that, this blindness was due to untreated glaucoma, and all those things. And, it is also said that as a government servant, he had to do excessive writing. And that is why, because he used to read and write so much, that he lost his eyesight. But students, remember, we are talking about John Milton's time. And during his time, there was no such thing as Braille. There were no recorded books or any other technologies, that are there today to assist the visually impaired people. Okay, in those days, none of these things existed. And a man who was so intelligent, who was so knowledgeable, who used to read a lot, who used to write a lot, when he loses his vision, how disastrous it could have been for him. Okay, anybody, like not only for Milton, I think, any person with eyesight suddenly loses his eyesight, it will be a disaster, isn't it? Of course, Milton did not overnight lose his eyesight. Not that he slept today and tomorrow morning he became blind. He started gradually losing the, eyesight. And by age of 44, he was completely blind. Okay. So that was a very devastating blow. In fact, blindness was like an intellectual death sentence. Okay, it was an intellectual death sentence. And at that moment of despair, and at that moment of his wavering faith in God, he writes this poem. In fact, he had other personal tragedies also almost at the similar time. His first wife, while giving birth to their third child, she died. And there were so many, personal traumas that he had to undergo. At that moment, he comes up with this poem on his blindness. So he is very clear here. It is whether God has turned blind towards him, or whether what is he actually trying to say is about his own physical blindness that he turned into by the age of 44. That thing he expresses in this particular poem. This is the backdrop of the poem, and with this backdrop, okay, we'll try to analyze the poem and try to understand and have a deeper understanding of this entire poem. So let us now go line by line and try to understand it. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, okay, see the note there. It is such a depressive, tone that we can find. He is just wondering how could his light be spent. Light is spent here means he has lost his vision, he has lost his eyesight, he has become blind. That is the meaning of light is spent. Okay, when I consider how my light is spent, here half my days in this dark world and wide. He's just spent half day here doesn't mean one single day. He's referring to his half life. He's just a middle-aged person now. He has another half of his life more to spend. And in this wide world, now this whole world is dark for him. Okay, so that pain, that, anguish, everything is there in that tone. He's so wondering how could he, become blind, and, why he has to suffer this, when he's so young, when he's still a middle-aged person. Only half of his life is spent, another half of his life is there yet to go, and in this dark world he's left without eyesight. Okay, so this is this is how he begins by expressing his sorrowful state of blindness that he's trying to express here. And that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless. Okay, so he is, we have already discussed that he's an highly intelligent man. He's a man of letters. He is a voracious reader. He was a tremendous intellectual man with lots of reading and writing and everything. For such a man, if blindness attacks in a period where there was no hope at all, how bad it could have been. So he tells that one talent which is death to hide, lodged within me useless. Now the talent, the poetic talent, he is referring here to the poetic talent that is there within him, such a strong poetic talent. Okay, not everybody is blessed with this talent, and he's so blessed. God has given him the talent, and only death can hide that. Now it is lodging within him useless, because when he becomes blind, how can he come out with his poetic expressions? How can he just put it in papers, or how can he read more books, or whatever it is? So he was completely under confusion. And this particular word talent, students, you must give a special attention to, because there are a lot of things to be told about this particular word talent. In fact, talent is the key word in this poem, and the meaning of the poem hinges on this word itself. Okay, see, once we read this, I am sure that you all understand that he means here, the reference of the talent here means talent. Actually, the literal meaning is a natural ability or aptitude, isn't it? What is a talent? Talent is your natural ability or your aptitude. So here it is the reference to Milton's poetic talent or the creative ability, isn't it? Poetic talent means creative ability. You have to be very, very creative to write poems. So that is how we understand on the superficial level. But actually, talent has another meaning. Here we can see the play of pun on this word talent. Students, please understand, pun means to exploit different possible meanings of a word. Usually it is done in a humorous way, but here it is not humorous or in a light way. No. Here the other possible meaning of the word talent is that you must understand that in ancient Roman times, talent means a unit of currency. It was actually a gold or a silver coin. Okay, talent means it was a coin. Okay. So this particular thing has an allusion for the parable of talents in the Gospel of Matthew. Okay, so there are so many things. Gospel means the words of God by Jesus Christ. Okay, and parable means usually a simple story version to put across a very spiritual thing in a simplest way, to explain a spiritual thing in a simple way. Stories are told, that is parable. So Jesus has told many such stories, so that is expressed in the parable of Matthew. Okay, so what does this word talent mean? Talent also means coin. Okay, a gold or silver coin. So very interestingly, that parable goes like this. It seems there was a rich man who had planned on a long journey. So before going to that journey, he calls all his three servants, and for the first servant, he gives 3 talents. 5 talents. Okay, a talent here means the coins. You can take it in that way. Okay, and for the second servant, he gives 2 coins or 2 talents, and for the last servant, the third servant, he gives 1 coin. What does the first servant do? He puts those 5 coins into usage, into business and everything, and he doubles it up. Now this servant has 10 talents, okay, 10 coins. And the second servant also does the same thing. He has only 2 coins, he puts that into use, and he also doubles up his talents. And the third one here, he is afraid of spending his talent, or he is afraid of spending his coin. So he digs the earth, and he hides the coin there. And when the rich man returns, before he left only, he would have said, you must, on my return, you should all tell me how you made use of these talents. So when the rich man returns, he asks, he'll be very happy with the first 2 because talent was given, and those 2 first servants have made use of the talent, and he dismisses or takes the third servant out of service because the third servant never made any use of talent. So here, students, you must understand, when God gives you something, you must make the right use of it. Okay, that is what the intention here is too. You must understand, whenever God has given us something, we must be in a position to explore its possibilities. We must try to enhance those talents that are given by God. Okay, so that is what here it means. It actually as a biblical reference, because Milton was so well read, definitely his works will reflect his large reading, isn't it? So similarly, here he brings in that biblical reference. This is a parable of Matthew. Okay, and in that parable, talent also means coins. Okay, a currency. So how that currency was used. So it's a hint. So likely here Milton also feels that I am blessed. I'm almost like that third servant. My talent is now buried inside my blindness, and only death in my it is lodged useless within me. Okay, so only death can hide the talent. His talent is so brimful, he's so talented, and only death can stop his talent. But unfortunately now it has become useless, like the talent of the third servant. He feels somewhere that one. So, but though my soul more bent to serve there with my maker, but he is not like the third servant, because Milton's spirit is ready to serve the maker. He wants to serve and develop his talent by serving God. Maker here means God. Okay, so his soul wants to serve the maker by using his talent. Okay, and present my true account, lest he returning chide. See, I really truly, from the bottom of my heart, from my soul, I want to render my services to God. Whatever talent he has given, whatever poetic talent he has given, I want to use that talent and serve God. As I told you, he's also a religious poet. So, naturally he's serving God through this way. So he tells that I want to continue serving Maker. I want to serve God, by the talent that he has given to me. But unfortunately, he is chiding me. He's just, probably he's scolding me, or he's just not returning a good favor. Though my soul wants to, it is bent upon serving God. It wants to serve God, but he is rebuking me. He is angry with me. He is returning anger to me. I don't know why, I want to present my true account. I want to serve God, but God is rebuking me. That is what he feels. So he puts a question. Doth God exact day labor light denied? Okay, so very interestingly, he wants to know, I mean, like, what is God doing to me? God is actually, uh, seizing my vision, and he's then expecting me to serve him, or he wants to like give trouble to me, or day labor here actually means is he trying to trouble me in such way that even though I have a desire, he's denying it, and then he wants to make my days more laborsome, or difficult. So by denying the light, he's giving me so much of trouble. That in that sense is asking, that God exact day labor light denied? He wants me to do the labor, but without giving me the light. How is this? I fondly ask. Okay, he's questioning me. So students, as I told you, even we have questioned God, many times, isn't it? Just like that, even he is questioning God. Does God wants me to work hard without giving me the equipments to work? Okay, so by denying the light, he's expecting me to work like that. Is he trying to give me more difficulty? What is it? So he asks that. But patience. Okay, here very interestingly, patience is personified. Patience is the quality of ultimate endurance, isn't it, children? Patience means to endure everything and anything. That is the word patience, isn't it? So here patience comes to answer him. So patience is personified here as a person, in the form of a person. Patience comes here to explain things to him. So what does patience say? It comes. But patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies. So somewhere, he's questioning God in a light murmur, not in a very strong way. Maybe even we have all fought with God in a very strong way. But Milton is a highly religious man. He very fondly asks, does really God want to trouble me and, expect me to work with more trouble by taking away my light, by taking away my, eyesight? He fondly asks. And even before that murmur becomes a louder sound, patience appears before him, and it tells, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Look at this thing. Yeah, patience is telling, come on, why do you think God expects you to work for him? He has never expected anything from man. Whatever man has is gift of God himself, isn't it? So whatever we are experiencing in life today is all given by God. So why would God want his gifts back? No, he is not asking you to do anything for him. Okay, he doesn't expect man to work for him. No. Or or his own gifts. See, these are the gifts that have been given by God. Why do you think he's expecting it from you? Who best bear his mild yoke? Yoke is that wooden thing which is usually put on the cows or bullocks, and it is attached to the cart, and with which it is drawn forward. Okay, it is like the two bullocks which carry that wooden log on their back. Okay, that is the yoke. So he gives you little burden, small burdens of life. Okay, who can bear best those burden, they serve him the best. Okay, so he's telling that who can actually, who can serve God. Now, God is not asking you to, give him anything, work for him or whatever it is. But if you really want to serve him, then serve him without complaining. Whatever little troubles or little burdens that come in your life, if you can bear that burden, then that is the best way of serving God, he says. Patience says that. His state is kingly. Okay, students, of course, I already told you Milton is a religious man, and to him, for Milton, it is somebody who can see God as a king or something. So we usually refer to king as God, isn't it? So in the same way, he has represented God as a king. Okay, sorry for this. He has represented God as king here, and he tells that God is like king, and there are thousands of people who are speeding up at every post, on land, on water, everywhere, without rest. They are doing everything possible under his command. Okay, so whatever he commands, there are several angels, thousands of angels, and everybody are there who are in service of God over land and over water bodies. Everywhere you find servants of God, and they are restlessly, or without any breaks, they are serving God. So the last thing is almost like a biblical expression itself here. They also serve who only stand and wait. Okay, so patience gives him the idea that, Milton, don't lose your belief, don't lose your trust and faith in God. God doesn't expect you to work for him. Whatever we are experiencing or enjoying in life, they're all gifts of God. Okay, so what you need to do is to bear it, bear the mild yoke. Okay, the small challenges or the small burdens or the small sufferings that come in life, if we bear them, that itself is the best way of serving. And he is like a king, he is the ultimate one. Under his command, there are thousands of angels who are serving him without any rest, day and night, and it's timeless for them, and they are ready to serve at his command over the lands and oceans and everything. What can you do? You can just please understand that even those people serve who only stand and wait. So, if you want to understand this last line, students, maybe you can imagine the guards who are guarding the king's palace. Okay, the main gate of the palace, there are guards. What do they do the whole day? They'll be guarding the main gate, and they'll be just standing there, isn't it? And they just have to wait there, whether the king may give them some orders, or the king may never give any order to them, but they still stand there and still do their duty. Do you think their duty is of no use? No, it's of utmost importance, because they give a security to the whole palace, isn't it? They are doing their duty, whether the king calls them or not, but still they are standing there waiting in the main gate. It's just like that. Imagine. So he tells that people who also are just standing are also, serving the God. Who are still standing and waiting are also serving the God. So here again we can see that he bounces back. He bounces back to that strong faith in him. Okay, so he had the doubt whether God's demand hard labor from me, and by depriving me of eyesight and all those things. But with all those things, he comes back to that strong faith that is there in him. That is, they also serve who only stand and wait. Here Milton means, by wait means wait for God's will and pleasure, and Milton's true religious sense is revealed in this lines. Okay, so his belief, his trust, his faith, everything is resurrected in Milton, and that is what he expresses, that they also serve who only stand and wait. So we have to wait till God has that will and pleasure to bless us. Okay, so till then we all need to wait. So this is the whole understanding of this poem. So please remember, the key things here is on his blindness. So here on his blindness can be read in a way that God has turned blind towards Milton, or Milton is directly talking about his blindness. Okay, at the age of 44, he becomes blind, and he's a highly religious man. Please remember, he's not a mystic. Mystics are ones who have transcended ordinary human knowledge, and they have spiritual ecstasies, and they are in direct contact with the divine, and such things are said. But Milton is not so. He is a highly religious man, and the speciality of religious man when compared to ordinary men is that they bounce back to their trust. They, because of the strong mental and emotional faith that they have in God, they come back to that trust in God again. Okay, So some of us, we might have seen in life, they lose faith in God and they become, atheists and all, isn't it? So it is very important for us to remember that he was a very religious man, and he's expressing you know um, his feelings when he turns blind. So here, the word talent is the key word. Talent has several meanings. On the one level, in this poetry level, we can understand that um, uh, talent is reference to Milton's poetic talent, and that is like, only death can hide that talent. He was so full of talent for poetry, and only death can hide that talent. But now it has become useless because he has lost sight, and this was during the time when there was no technical aid, not even braille or not even recorded books which a poet could rely on. And that time, it was a very devastating experience. So talent also meant coin. Okay, it was a gold and silver coin, reference to that. And it also has an allusion to the parable of Matthew 25. I already told what that parable is. Okay, it is what God gives us, we must put that into use. We must try to double that. Okay, it is not only in the form of money but also form of talent. But now Milton is wavering. He is, because a religious man is also a human, right? And every human being has moments of doubts and dilemmas. So here Milton is also experiencing that, and he's telling that he wants to serve the maker, he wants to do service to God through his poetic talent. But God is rebuking him, and so he questions in a very light way. He says that really God wants me to give a hard labor for me, hard work from me. Does he expect a very hard work from me by depriving my light? He very fondly asks, and then patience comes. Patience is personified. It comes in the form of a person and tells Milton that, come on, Milton, God does not need you to work for him. He has never expected any man to work for him. Whatever man is enjoying, it is all God. It is all the gift given by God. And those who can really bear the challenges or the burdens that is given, they are the ones who serve God best. Okay, and he is like a king, and there are thousands of angels who are without any rest. They are ready to work for and they are working for God over land and sea and oceans and everything. So why would he expect us? So please remember that those who stand and wait are also serving God. So patience asks Milton to wait for the time when God is going to bless or shower his blessings on him. So this is the whole understanding of the poem. I suppose you all had an idea now. So these are some of the questions, one mark questions. If you try to answer them, you'll have a deeper understanding of the poem. And these are the descriptive questions. They are right from your textbooks. And students, please go through this. This is for your read and understanding. Very interestingly, I found them. This could be useful for you all. So I have just mentioned these things here. Okay, and this is for your benefit. After reading and rereading the poem and understanding the whole poem, go through this part. You will have a deeper understanding of it. And the notes, don't worry, we are not expecting these analysis and this kind of summary. Of course, we'll appreciate if you can take from this. It's good for you. But we are going to give you a simpler version of notes as we had given in the previous time also very soon. I suppose I have given you an idea about this, and I think that this video is going to be useful for you to understand on his blindness well. So that is all for this particular video. Thank you all.